Hey, gentlemen, if you guys could just each talk about Trayvon's skill set, what intrigued you by it, and how you think you'll best be able to use him in the defense.
Well, there's a lot to like in terms of his skill set. Very versatile player. He played all the way up and down the line of scrimmage, anywhere from a 0 technique to a 7 technique. Played in the 2-point off the edge, which he's going to be used a lot at in our scheme. He can, that versatility, ability to stop the run, rush the passer. There's a lot of work to do, but there's a lot of talent to work with.
Yeah, really just to echo Trent's remarks too, just, his athleticism, his length, his ability to bend the corner, and the thing that you see with this guy, and it is his versatility. He played all up and down the defensive line at Georgia. Just a tremendous kid. He's going to be great for the locker room. And really, I think for us too, just getting him in here, getting him going as soon as we can. And I think getting him in one position and letting him really get good at one position, and that's where we feel that he's really going to, make the most impact for us.
This is also for both of you. There was a lot of pre-draft speculation that you Trent favored Trayvon, and that you Doug favored the offensive lineman Ekwonu. Could you talk a little bit about how you arrived at this decision? I mean, did you guys actually have some disagreement about this?
Can I just stop you?
Yeah.
There was never, this thing was never split.
Okay, I'm not saying
I'm
not saying it was. I'm just saying that.
I know it's out, and I just want to just go out on record and say it was never that way. I don't know where that came from, and that's one of the things I've loved about our process is the communication and us being on the same page, and these sort of unnamed sources, so to speak. I don't get into a lot of that, and it a lot of work went into making this selection tonight, and we're just fired up to have Trayvon in the building.
That said, could you answer the original question about how you obviously collaborated on it, but was there consensus from the get-go about Trayvon, or was that something that you had to arrive at after a while?
Well, I think Doug did a great job of just telling. There was never a non-consensus. There was a lot of collaboration through this process. We never had that debate. What we did is take a look at each prospect, how they fit our system, how they fit the organization, the culture, and we worked from there. We took them all independently and we worked through them. And we just felt at the end of the day this was the best pick for this organization at this time.
Hey, Trent, Doug, over here. There seems to be this perception from a lot of fans that Walker just popped on at the Combine, and that's when teams really started to fall in love with him. Can you talk about, I know you've been doing homework on guys all season long, or, into last season, when you first saw Walker and, prior to the Combine and started to say, okay, this might be a guy?
Well, the first time that I saw him personally was early October. And from that moment on, I felt he had a lot of talent. And obviously, you don't make the decision the middle of October, early October. It's a process. But he checked the boxes as we went through the process. We got a great chance to look at him through the season. I played an extended season into the national championship game, and they obviously won that. Then he goes to the Combine. He went to his pro day, and he did all the drills, both linebacker and defensive line. So we got a great chance to spend a lot of time with him. He was one of the guys we visited with at the Combine. He came in for one of the 30 visits, and I believe we sent 5 or 6 coaches to the pro day in Georgia. So we had a lot of front and center action with him, a lot of opportunity to get to know him, to spend time with him and as an individual. And again, he checked all the boxes throughout the entire process.
Hey, and Doug, from a coach's perspective, when you see a guy with the athletic ability like Walker, does that just get your wheels turning of ways you can use him?
Of course, with the versatility that he has and the length that he has, and he's a humble guy that just wants to work and improve, and it's exciting to be able to see where he can help us, and he's already coming into a good room, and he just made the room better, and we're excited for that.
Trent, there's a lot of talk about his floor and his ceiling. Where do you see his floor and where do you see his ceiling for this guy?
Well, all of these guys, all of these young guys coming into the league, they obviously got here on the efforts they put forth and what they did at the collegiate level. There's a lot of learning to do for all of these guys coming in. You know, we feel very strongly about him as a player, that we're going to end up with a good football player, but it's not going to be without a lot of work on his part. So the ceiling is up to him. We're going to do our best to put him in position to reach that ceiling. But at the end of the day, it's really on these guys, these young men, to come in, put in the time, both mentally and physically, to reach the ceiling that they're all capable of reaching.
Trent, a lot of folks questioning that the production, quote unquote, at least in the numbers department, wasn't there. The sack numbers aren't there. What would you say to those critics who may say, well, you're taking a guy who maybe didn't have the college production of some of the other edge rushers on the board?
Yeah, you can't make excuses for any player. You know, what we can do is look at the film and what's production. There's a lot of things that go into production. It's not, at the end of the day, just how many sacks they tally or how many pressures they have. There's a run element to the game too. So there's a lot of ways to look at production, and we feel very comfortable about his production, run and pass, with a lot of upside. But again, he's got to come in like these young guys do. They got to come in and earn it.
And also one other thing, the report just surfaced about a car accident that he was involved in 2 weeks ago. I was curious if you knew about that and if you were able to comment.
Yeah, absolutely, we knew about it, but no comment.
Following up a little bit on Mia's question regarding production. In terms of efficiency, you talked about it's not just sacks, but in terms of efficiency, in terms of the times he was actually allowed to go get the quarterback, as opposed to maybe other, standard edge rushers in the draft. What did you think about his efficiency in not just in the times he was able to get the quarterback versus the times he was actually allowed to try and do it?
Well, I think when you watch his film, the one thing he does an excellent job of canceling his gap. And they play a very gap-oriented defense. He plays up and down the line of scrimmage from the A gap all the way out to the D gap, and he rarely was out of gap. He's a very gap-sound football player. They do a great job of coaching there. This young guy's going to come in with some great coaching behind him. He's young. He's 21 years old and a lot to learn, especially when you step into this league and this arena. So, again, the expectation is for him to come in, settle him into one position, and get him comfortable, get him playing, and then, take it from there in terms of the versatility.
As a follow-up to that, what does it say about his instinct that he was able to play all the way across the line and be as effective as he was?
I think it says a lot. Every technique you play, it's a little bit different. You play over the head of the center, and you got a trifecta coming at you. You play in the over the guard, that's a whole nother element. You play inside eye on the tackle, that's another technique you got to learn. All these techniques take time, take feel. He's got a lot of natural feel to his game, especially playing along the line of scrimmage. But he also did an excellent job playing on his feet in the snaps that he played on his feet. And he did that, I would say roughly 15% of the time or whatever that allotted to. But he's proven he can do all the things that we're going to ask him to do in our system and have the versatility to do it and do it at a high level.
Question for you, Doug. I think this might have been repeated, but do you see him as far as his strength? I mean, obviously the versatility is an asset, but what about his ability to be an interior defensive lineman also? I mean, you see him in that role?
Well, I think I would echo what Trent said about him. We got to get him in here first, and we got to get him in one position. We do like this. One of the things we liked about Trayvon is his versatility, and the fact that he can move up and down the defensive line. And, it's something that as we go and as we grow with him, knowing that he's been able to do that, maybe you come up with a package or two where he goes down inside on third down or something of that nature. But again, for right now, let's get him in here. Let's get him working with our guys, with our coaches, get him in one spot, and, get him with the group.
Hey, Trent, just to kind of circle back on what Dean was asking earlier about the process. When did you arrive at the decision? When you go through all the discussions and you finalize that decision, when was that? And then the second part is about Aiden Hutchinson and how close maybe it was between Trayvon and Aiden and even several.
Well, let's answer that, the second part first. It was a process, for a lot of these guys. And, we had it narrowed down to 6, 7 guys for quite some time, and we were working through that, working through the fits. And I'm not going to get into comparing, Trayvon to Aiden or any other player in the draft. These guys are all individuals, and there's you look at them for what they are, and how they were played in the system they were played in, and you try to envision how that's going to fit the system that we employ. As far as when did we come up with the final decision, it's never final till you meet with ownership. And we met with ownership yesterday. I had a good meeting with Shad for about an hour and a half, 2 hours in the draft room, and that's when we've actually finalized it.
What does it say here in the front? Sorry, what does it say about Walker that he played some of the best football in those 2 playoff games like that? Do you love that part about a guy that really shows up when the stakes are at the highest?
Well, you're always looking for guys that rise to the biggest moments, right? He's played some very consistent football all year long. This isn't a guy, and it was mentioned earlier, this isn't a guy that just jumped on the screen because he ran 4.51 in the 40-yard dash at the combine. He played some very good football throughout the course of the year. I think he got on the scene a little late because people weren't expecting him to be in the draft this year. They weren't expecting it, as he got better and as it became more evident that he was going to, probably enter the draft, I think that's when people started taking much harder looks at him.
A question for either Doug or Trent. When you guys were talking to When you guys were talking to Georgia coaches, what did they sort of tell you about Trayvon, the type of player that you guys are getting, and then obviously the type of person he is?
Well, to speak to him as a person, just a humble, down-to-earth, great character guy, comes from a really good family background, supportive family, and a guy that just wants to work. And conversations with their coaches, that's exactly what we got. Those are all the things that as we go through this process, we try to figure out, right? We've tried to figure out these players that way, and talking to some of their position coaches, and obviously, Coach Smart down there at Georgia. And look, they're a national championship team, and for a reason. And they got a really good defense, and there's a lot of good players, on that defense, and Trayvon's one of them. And so, it was just exciting to kind of get to know this player, as we do with all the players over the last, several months, and really dive into who they are as people and how they can fit our room.
How much is he going to make guys like Josh Allen better in terms of coming off the edge? Now all of a sudden you have guys might be freed up a little bit more.
Well, I think that's something yet to be seen, right? We got to get him in here. We got to get him coached up. We got to get him comfortable, start learning the defense, and we'll see, as we go, how that affects other people on the defense.
Doug, how do you balance, Trent was talking about, he has a lot to learn, he's going to be a rookie, but how do you balance, there's that learning curve of being a rookie with the target that inevitably comes with being the number 1 overall pick?
Yeah, and that's a real thing, with these players, and I think we as coaches and as staff, we just surround ourselves with this guy, and we do our best to really let him focus on football. And one thing I know about Trayvon too is he just wants to focus on football, and there's going to come some responsibility, and he understands that. It was a conversation that he and I had about that, and just those expectations outside of football, and he's willing to embrace that. And I think the more that he does embrace it, especially early on, the football part he'll be able to settle into, but it's also my job to kind of maybe shield him just a little bit from some of the stuff on the outside and let him just focus on football.
Trent, I know a big buzzword during this process has been length. Just how exactly is that important in the evaluation process, and Trayvon's case specifically? How does his length kind of help him as a player?
Well, length's important. It's not that guys with shorter arms or less length can't play the game. There's been plenty that have played it at a high level, but it's certainly an asset if they use it to the full potential. He's extremely long, 35-plus arm length, 85 wingspan. I mean, the guy's got great length at a little bit over 6'5". So, you know, if used properly and he knows how to use it, it can be a great advantage for any player at any position, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Doug, as a player and as a coach, you have seen players reach their upside potential. What did it take for those players to get there that you've personally seen?
I just think it takes the support and just the having a support structure around these players, and I mean that with with the coaching staff and the guys that I've brought onto the to my staff that have coached these positions, and they've coached them at the high level, or they've played at this level, and they understand what it takes to elevate somebody's play. And I think too, when you surround a player with other good players, they want to do well, and they want to do well by their teammates. And so, with the guys that we have currently, and now we add, Trayvon into that room, and his work ethic and who he is as a person and how he wants to improve and get better. As Trent mentioned earlier, I think the ceiling is what he wants to make it.
But you've seen that. You've seen guys do that. And it takes a combination of all those things.
Yes.
And their own commitment.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
What were the challenges, right here, guys? What were the challenges of having the #1 pick and not needing a quarterback, and having the #1 pick and it not being a particularly strong quarterback year? Did you have calls for any trades, or is this you were going to pick #1 regardless?
No, it was a quiet year that way. When you're sitting at 1, and obviously nobody had a quarterback valued at that position, and so we didn't field any calls for the #1 spot.
Trent, on the trade front, do you think there's likely to be some calls about moving back into the late first by tonight, or do you think you're done for the night making picks?
We're not done. We're going to see how this thing folds. I shouldn't say we're not. We could be done. It takes two to tango, right? When you're talking about trading back in, but we're going to see how the board falls. We've got some things that we're taking a look at, so there's a possibility we jump back into this thing. So we're certainly not putting the phones down right now.
Hey, Doug, how you doing?
Great. How are you?
Good, good. That was a bold prediction you made to the fans about never having another #1 pick.
It's okay.
To that human element, though, when you hear that the guy you're about to draft, #1, has a car accident, what emotions are you feeling before you even get to finding out all of the facts?
Yeah, for me personally, it's I go straight to the person. Take football out of it. It's a life incident, right? It's a life situation. So obviously my concern and my thoughts and prayers were with him, and we wanted to find out as much information as we could, obviously, about it, and felt like we got everything that we needed answered, and he was okay, and that's where my thoughts went.
A little bit of relief, huh?
Take football out of it. Yeah. Yep.
Thanks.
Yep.
Let's finish on some positive news. Josh Allen, 5th-year option exercised here this afternoon. For that, knowing that Trayvon was just picked and knowing that Josh Allen in the fold now through 2023, what went into that decision? What do those two do for each other moving forward?
Well, I guess I'll answer that, or you can answer. But first of all, they earned it. That's the important thing. Both of them earned it. There's as you're trying to build this thing, you're trying to keep as many of your players as possible. The best way to build a winning franchise is to draft well, sign players. They perform well, you re-sign them, and you build that culture that you're going to take care of your own. And I think this is a good start. These two guys have earned it, and we're going to continue to work as we move forward to continue to re-sign some guys that earn it. And I guess that's the best I can lay it out there for you.
How could Trayvon help open up Josh and vice versa?
Well, and again, it kind of goes a little bit back to what I was mentioning earlier, until we get Trayvon in here and working, and to see those pieces working together, then we'll have a better picture as to how that will open up each other. But again, just like Trent said too, with Josh, he earned it. He earned that, and we're excited for him, obviously, and his family, and it solidifies a defense that we feel has been pretty good here recently.